There we go. So this meeting will be recorded, is being recorded, and everybody will receive an email with a copy of the recording. So just in case you missed something or want to see it again, it will come on out to you. Tanya and I are going to go back and forth as we talk about top supplements for each one of the four categories I just mentioned: sports performance, injury recovery, hormonal health, and metabolic efficiency. And we're going to chat for about 10 minutes on each one. We're going to leave some room for questions. So if you have any questions for us as we go through, you'll have the chance to ask them or pop them into the chat box as we go through each one of the topics. So let's dive right in. I'll just give you a little bit about who I am, and then I'll pass it over to Tanya to give you a little bit about who she is and dive right in. So I'm Sarah Cuff, registered holistic sports nutritionist, founder of Eat to Run Sports Nutrition. And I guess I've been at this for about a decade now. And over the past 10 years or so, having worked with so many clients, so many different supplements, it's been really interesting to land on the ones that really seem to work for the majority of clients, almost no matter who you are. And of course, there's always exceptions, but what I'm sharing today, I've found really tends to work well for the vast majority. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tanya.
All right. So hello, everybody. I'm Tanya. I'm also a registered holistic nutritionist. I'm a triathlon coach and a strength and conditioning coach. So in those worlds, there is a lot of supplements and there's a lot of media that's promoting different supplements. And I've used lots of different things. And I'm going to talk about 4 today that I have found to be quite beneficial for sports performance and for stress management. I think that there's lots of different things. People are individual, but I find that these 4 are pretty helpful for the majority of people as well, and also provide some food options if you don't want to go the supplement route, especially with one of the supplements that I'm offering or I'm going to be talking about. So I'm just going to roll right into what we're doing. So the first sort of topic that we're in is sports performance. And I'm going to be talking about nitric oxide, and I'm going to be talking about protein powder. And so the first one is nitric oxide, and I will pull up my slide. Sorry, I just have to remember how to do this. There we go. So nitric oxide, this is what I'm talking about. I like the Pure Encapsulation brand. There's other brands out there, but I like Pure. What nitric oxide is, it's a main player in your body when it comes to promoting vasodilation, and that's the expansion of your blood vessels. And so what you can get out of that for sport performance is more efficient blood flow, which is going to have more oxygen delivery to your muscles. It's going to enable for faster recovery. It's going to help you with reducing soreness and DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness. And it can decrease the demand on your heart and your muscles, because endurance sport already has a pretty significant demand on your heart and your muscles. And so anything that we can do to decrease that is going to be beneficial. Why you might consider taking a supplement could be as we age, our ability to produce or to convert the base building blocks into nitric oxide decreases. Chronic stress is also going to decrease your body's ability to produce nitric oxide, and other things like insufficient sleep. And so I know with chronic stress and with being endurance athletes, sometimes sleep is something we sacrifice, even though maybe we shouldn't be, to try to get in that workout, or just trying to manage your lifestyle and everything we've got going on with the world. You know, we're not always sleeping so great. So all of these things can contribute to not being able to produce nitric oxide at the rate that you might want it to get the benefits for the amount of activity that you do. So how you can do this is you can take a supplement like Pure, 20 minutes before your workout, and then go do your session. You can also use another one like Beat Boost, which I don't have a picture of. Sorry, it's something that you may have seen at a lot of race expos. That's going to give you that nitric oxide as well. What I do find is that you can often get what you need using food as well. And the food choices are gonna help you in two different ways. One is that it's actually gonna provide the building block that can be converted into nitric oxide, or it's gonna provide the molecule that you need to make the conversion. So you need a reaction to convert an amino acid into nitric oxide. To make that conversion, you need another molecule. So these foods that I'm going to list either provide the base for conversion or the substrate to make that conversion. So if you eat a wide variety of foods, you're going to kind of get what you need without necessarily needing the supplement. But it could be an option if you're short, or maybe you're traveling and you're just not going to have access to the types of foods that you're used to using, but you still want to get the performance gains. And so for some of the foods that you would want to look into, like I said, Beet Boost, the powder, you can also eat beets. And they're really high in nitrates, and nitrates are what gets converted into nitric oxide. If you consume garlic, garlic helps with nitric oxide synthase, which is what converts nitrates into nitric oxide. So I'm not going to go through all the foods and what they do, but those are just two examples of you're either giving your body the building block or the substrate to make the conversion. And so you're going to have beets, garlic, dark chocolate, and I'm sure Sarah's like, yes, dark chocolate, dark leafy greens, nuts and seeds, citrus fruits, pomegranates, watermelon, red wine, all of these great things that we love to eat. And the kind of bonus about eating these foods is they actually also support your body's ability to manage stress at the same time, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. And so this is kind of nice if I can take a supplement, or I can eat this whole food that's going to provide a few different benefits to my body. So that might be something that you're going to want to consider. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is protein powder. There's lots of different ways that you can get protein into your diet, but if we're looking at what protein does for you, it's the amino acids. As when you eat protein, your body breaks everything down into single amino acids. You absorb those amino acids, and then they can get rebuilt into your muscle fibers, into enzymes, into all different components within your body. Those amino acids can also get converted into other things, just like getting converted into nitric oxide. So you definitely want to consider taking in protein, especially as endurance athletes, especially as we age, and especially if you're a woman going through perimenopause, menopause. It's really important to make sure you're getting your protein. Having adequate levels is going to make sure you have the building blocks for your muscles, for your bones, your skin, your organs. It also helps with managing different reactions within your body. So it's pretty important to focus on getting good quality protein. Some other benefits to getting a good protein dose is that it's going to help you feel full for longer. Protein takes a little bit of time to break down, and it's going to help keep you feeling full and satisfied. And I know for myself, when I start increasing my volume for training, I'm hungrier. I'm probably meeting my requirements, but I just have this like internal hunger demon that's never really satisfied, and it can be a little bit more satiated by increasing my protein content just to keep me feeling content and full for longer. Protein also can help with managing your metabolism. So if you're doing all of these workouts and you're breaking down your muscles, and then you're giving your body protein to build up your muscles, the more lean muscle you have, the more you're going to keep your metabolism functioning. And also you're going to have the building blocks to run, to create all the other enzymes that you need within your body to run your metabolism. So you want to fuel your body to feel full, also to fuel it to have the building blocks to make your muscles, more muscles, higher metabolism. You're going to be maintaining probably the body composition that you're looking for, especially for endurance sport. Protein also helps with signaling to your body that it's time to stop breaking down after a workout and it's time to start rebuilding. And so we go through all of the effort of doing our hard sessions or doing our long sessions and making the work happen. And when you do that, your body's breaking down a little bit, which we're kind of after that reaction. But you want to tell it to stop when you stop. So if you finish your workout and you take in a good protein dose, it tells your body, I'm done breaking down. It's time to rebuild. And then you've given it the building blocks to do that. So it's primed and ready to go for repair, and it's got the building blocks. And so then you're going to be good to go and be able to do that repair. So protein as a performance aid is sort of maintaining your body so that it can perform. It's not necessarily that I'm going to take a shot of protein and then be able to run really well. It's more just that I'm going to take my dose of protein and recover really well, make the adaptations, therefore run, swim, bike, whatever it is that I'm doing stronger, and be more resilient from it. It's important to dial in your protein intake. Am I doing okay for time still, Sarah? Okay. So it's important to be able to look at your individual protein intake. And so there's a little number, which I'm just going to tell you. It's not, I don't have a screenshot of it. For athletes, you're probably looking at something between 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And so that's just a number that you're going to have to calculate for yourself. If you're putting in a lot of high intensity and long duration workouts, you might be closer to 1.8, 2.0. Or if you're doing a lot of resistance work, or if you're a new athlete. Often new athletes are making a lot of changes internally and you're using your muscles in different ways that you haven't before. So you're going to want to make sure you have a higher protein intake to be able to give your body the building blocks for this new types of workouts that you're doing. So just a quick example for the calculation. If I was 140 pounds, I'm going to require about 77 to 128 grams of protein per day. And that can seem kind of daunting, but if you just break it down and make sure each meal you're getting about 30, 40 grams of protein in your main meals and 15 to 30 grams in your snacks, having a wide variety of foods, you're going to be able to chip away at that number and get it in. And this is where potentially having that scoop of protein powder in your recovery smoothie would give you 25 grams right there in a nice, easily digestible form because it's pretty broken down in a powder, and you're going to be able to absorb it and get it into the bloodstream and get it to where you want it to go. You can also, if you're plant-based or you're omnivore, there's lots of different ways to add your protein in that way. So like I said, just with having a large variety of food, it's just easier to do that. So if you're looking at plant-based, an example of if I put hemp hearts on my yogurt, 3 tablespoons is 10 grams. So that's a pretty good chunk of my protein just in my yogurt. And then plus what my yogurt also has some protein. Or if I put chia seeds in my smoothie, there's 4 grams per 2 tablespoons. You can get it from your lentils, nuts and seeds, and you may not know, but rice and oats and buckwheat, all of those also have protein. So you don't have to just stick to animal-based or getting in your beans or tofu. You can also get it from grains. And then, of course, if you're going to go omnivore, using a nice serving of organic grass-fed meats or fish, you're looking at 25 grams per serving there as well. So little bits each day, you should be able to hit your target. And if you need to, then you can always choose using, sorry, I didn't even change my slides. Terrible. You can then use, your protein powders. Here's a few examples. And it's really individual on, first, I think you need to be able to tolerate the taste of what you're using. There's lots of good options out there. I have some that I can't stand, therefore I don't drink my smoothie, or I have to, like, it just takes all satisfaction away with eating, and I like eating. So I might like to use Kaizen brand. There may be other brands out there that work for you. It's just going to be individual. And you might go with vegan protein, or you might go with whey protein. I like the New Zealand whey protein. Or you could use both. Again, then you're getting over, if you're use both, if that fits into your diet, then you're just getting, again, more variety. So I might have one day I'm going to do a vegan smoothie, one day I'm going to do a whey smoothie. Just, again, the more variety you have, the more nutrients you're going to get, the more benefit to your body. And that was the slide I was supposed to show you when I was talking about the food. That's what I have for sport performance. So nitric oxide and protein. Are there any questions? I do see one. I'm going to just stop sharing this. There was one in the chat.
Oh, I just put in the grams of protein you mentioned into the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Great.
Yeah, no worries. Tanya, actually, I have a question when it comes to sports performance. I'm same page as you, nitric oxide, protein being top 2 supplements we need to reach for. Curious on your thoughts on caffeine.
Yeah, so caffeine is another one that could have gone into this presentation for sure. I do think it has its place. Same thing, it also helps very similar in ways of nitric oxide with getting the blood flow and giving you the energy and helping with promoting getting nutrients where they need to go. I think with endurance sport, it's important to manage when you're going to be taking that caffeine. So like no problem in the morning. If that's something that you normally do, if you drink coffee in the morning, then drink coffee on race day or on long training days, because that's what your body's used to. If you've got a long day, you just want to be careful that maybe not everything you're taking has caffeine, because you could run into digestive distress. And so for me, if I was doing, say, like a half Ironman, I'm a triathlete, so that's my focus. I would have my coffee in the morning. I personally wouldn't touch caffeine on the bike. I would start taking caffeine in a gel or however I was going to get it, probably on the second half of the run. Because for me, that's when the race really kind of starts. You kind of manage everything to those last 10K, and then you start racing. And I would do the same for endurance rides as well. Just not relying on caffeine all day, because you can just kind of overload on it and struggle with digestive distress. What do you think? Anything for you, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. And same thing with my 100-milers. I actually wouldn't start taking caffeine until nightfall, and I would take it through the night, the latter half of the 100-miler. Yeah,
so, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? You can just pop off of mute if you have something you want to ask, or throw it into the chat box if you don't want to speak. And if you don't have it right now, no problem. We can always have a few minutes at the end to be able to circle back to answer any questions if something comes up. All right. I think, Sarah, you're up.
All right. Yeah. So sports performance done. Let's turn to injury recovery. And really, actually, let me speak to both injury recovery as well as injury prevention. And so the supplements and foods I'm going to touch on really take care of both. And I know that while hopefully none of us are injured here, well, I am, and actually Tanya is too. Yeah, so we got a couple injured people on this call. I tore my ACL, gosh, about 7 months ago. So if you are injured, these will help. I'm going to up the dosage for the injured. For prevention, it's just a smaller dosage and more commonly turning to the whole foods. So the two that I want to focus on today are curcumin and omega-3s. And let me just jump into sharing. So curcumin is by far over the years one of the best supplements that I have landed on to help somebody recover from an injury as fast as possible. And when we're looking at injury, we are looking, there's both chronic injuries, those injuries that creep up slowly on you. It might be stress fractures, labral hip tears, calf strains, hip strains, knee injuries, ITB. So these things that are inflammatory and develop slowly over time, Achilles tendonitis, bursitis, plantar fasciitis. And then on the other hand, there are the acute injuries, such as Tanya and I are both dealing with. So this is broken bones, sprained ankles, sprained ribs, torn hamstrings, calves, torn ligaments or tendons. And in both cases, what happens is there is a lot of inflammation happening in the body. And what the goal is with curcumin and omega-3s for that matter, is to reduce the amount of inflammation to the point that allows the body to heal. We do not want to eliminate inflammation. Inflammation is actually something that's very beneficial. It is our body's way of sending all of these nutrients to the area that's been damaged in order to heal. The problem happens when we are putting ourselves in stressful circumstances. It might be eating food that's inflammatory. It might be not getting enough sleep. It might simply be having to deal with all of life's stressors. And so stress hormones galore going through the body. And in this case, this will exacerbate inflammation and delay healing. So what we can do to help our bodies heal as quickly as possible is turn to a curcumin supplement, which is a component of turmeric, which I'll speak to more in depth in just a moment. But basically, it's a component that can modulate inflammation through multiple cell signaling pathways. So COX-2, lipo-oxygenase, INOS. There's a number of different pathways that simply help to modulate inflammation. And curcumin works so well on them. There was actually a 2013 review published. And basically in the conclusion, they say it seems that curcumin's clinical efficiency is too good to be true. And literally it really is. There's thousands of studies to show us just how beneficial curcumin is on all inflammatory human disease. We're not just talking injury recovery from sports injuries. It is literally any inflammatory disease, from Alzheimer's to periodontal to heart disease. The list is very, very long. When we are looking to recover from injury as fast as possible, I will often recommend, so I've got 3 different examples, some of my favorite brands, Thorne, AOR, Natural Factors. I will often recommend my clients take either double the dosage for 1 to 2 weeks, or sometimes triple the dosage for 1 to 2 weeks. And really making sure it's 1 to 2 weeks short. We're not taking this high dosage for a long time. 2 to 3 weeks should be enough to see a difference. So quick little story, must be about 8 years ago now. I sprained my rib 3 or 4 days before I was set to run a marathon. And it was very painful. I thought I was dying. I'm not sure what I was dying of, but I knew I was dying of something. So I went to the doctor and he said, "Oh, you've just got a sprained rib. Don't do anything for 6 weeks." And I'm like, "I have a marathon in 3 days." And he's like, "Yeah, you're not doing that." So I went off to LA and I did the marathon in a lot of pain. And then I came home and I put myself on a regime of 3 times the dosage of curcumin that the package recommends, as well as omega-3s. And within 2 weeks, I was hardly experiencing any discomfort whatsoever. I was totally back to running. I have seen that in many of my clients. It cuts recovery time down by 50% or more dramatically. And I have many more personal stories as well as client stories that are very, very similar to that one. Some of my clients like to take curcumin supplements per the dosage on the package as a preventative. I don't necessarily recommend that. I'm a huge fan of going to whole foods first. And so this is where we turn to turmeric and just try to integrate turmeric into meals, a 1/2 to 1 teaspoon daily into any savory meals, We just need to make sure that it is bioavailable. So adding fresh ground pepper into whatever meal we're making that has the turmeric in it. Fresh is always best, but I've stained many clothes and my fingers many times using the fresh turmeric root. So I will more commonly turn to the powdered form of turmeric, which gets sprinkled in just about everything that I make. There's over 24 anti-inflammatory compounds in turmeric. So definitely something so curcumin is only one of those 24, definitely something to include on a regular basis. And then second, I want to look at omega-3 fatty acids. And so like I mentioned earlier, omega-3 fatty acids also have the ability to reduce inflammation, much in the same way that curcumin does through these the multiple cell signaling pathways, and modulate inflammation down, but not get rid of it. And so this is why we want to avoid reaching for NSAIDs, Advil, things like that, because what these medications do is pretty much completely eliminate inflammation, which might not be a bad thing for the first day or two after an acute injury, but we definitely don't want to be taking them on a long-term basis, along with getting rid of all inflammation, slowing the healing process. We can also damage the integrity of our gut walls. We can put too much strain on our liver. So there's a number of reasons why we want to avoid going to drugs and instead go to the more natural alternatives. So omega-3 fatty acids, you can see here, there's a fish oil supplement. My favorite is Nordic Naturals. There's many good ones out on the market. And vegetarian source, NutriVeg, is my favorite one to reach for and recommend. On a day-to-day basis, I've listed some of the foods that you might reach for if you don't want to go to a supplement. But when we're looking for faster healing, it would serve us well to go to a supplement, even if it's just very short term, because the amount for healing is about 2,000 to 5,000 milligrams per day. And so looking at whatever brand you end up grabbing, it would probably be 2 to 3 teaspoons per day. And this is why I always go for liquid instead of capsules, because that would be something like 12 or 15 capsules, way too many capsules to be swallowing on a daily basis. So liquid is always best to reach for. And then taking, again, 2 to 3 weeks. This is not long term. We don't want to keep up a high dosage for that long. I really would never recommend longer than a month for sure. Once the injury is well on its way to healing or healed, we might want to maintain at a rate of about 500 milligrams daily, which is about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, depending, again, on package directions. That said, some of us, when we're in hardcore training, we're putting our body through a lot of stress and there's some excess inflammation there. So we might want to up the dosage to about 1,500 milligrams on a daily basis. So just to give you an idea of, depending where you're at, whether it's prevention, maintenance, if you're in hardcore training, or if you're actually looking to heal from an injury, the dosage will vary. And then lastly, I just want to give cursory mention to tart cherry, which I'm sure many of you have heard me write or talk about before. Eat to Run is all about tart cherry, and really just working in tart cherry wherever you can into a daily basis. So whether it's tart cherry juice as the basis to the smoothie that Tanya was talking about, that you're going to put your protein powder in, you might add frozen tart cherries to that smoothie. You might add the dried tart cherries to your trail mix. There's tart cherry juice concentrate. Take a tablespoon or 2 of that just before you go to bed. And clinical studies show it helps improve the quality of sleep. And there is a dietary supplement, which I very, very rarely recommend. I much prefer to go to Whole Foods for tart cherry. And I will just open it up to any questions on these supplements or anything to do with injury recovery. Over to you, Tanya.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. That was super helpful. I think that there's going to be some crossover, as with um, taking in your protein and taking in the greens and supporting your body for nitric oxide and for recovery. It's also some of those things are your omega-3s are part of that with getting your good quality food. So I think a lot of what we're talking about, there's going to be a lot of crossover. If you're supporting one system, if it's supporting your body for injury, you're also helping with reducing stress. And with reducing stress, you're also helping with performance. So everything is kind of interrelated. Let me just share mine. All right. So we're looking at hormonal health, and specifically what I'm going to talk about is 2 adaptogens for stress management. And that stress management comes from many things. And so we'll kind of get into that. But if you don't know what an adaptogen is, and that's okay. They're actually just plant substances that help your body manage stress and maintain homeostasis or maintain balance. And so they're really fantastic tools that you can utilize in your daily routine, because we have a lot of stresses that come up in different ways, as we've already talked about. They can help manage external stressors. It can help with internal stressors. It can help stabilize your mood. And all of that can help with your performance and focus. The 2 that I want to talk about today are ashwagandha and rhodiola. They have a couple different mechanisms, but they ultimately do the same thing when it comes to managing your stress response in terms of managing cortisol. The primary target for adaptogens is your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or your HPA axis. And that's basically like your master central glands that control how your body is going to function. So your hypothalamus is responsible for temperature control and your appetite and thirst sensations. Pituitary is like your master gland for your body, helps to regulate a lot of functions and hormones. And then your adrenals are going to help to produce those hormones and help regulate your metabolism, immune system, blood pressure, and finally response to stress. So your adaptogens are going to sort of work through that axis to help control the rest of your body. The nice thing about adaptogens is that they're really kind of fluid in their ability to support you. So if there's too much of one hormone, your adaptogens can actually lower that hormone. But if you have too little of it, it can actually help to boost production. So they're really unique in terms of if you take them, and they do work similar to antidepressants in a way that you want to take it for a while to build up having a base quantity in your system so that they have the ability to sort of raise your hormones up or bring them down depending on what it is your body needs to maintain balance. And so why we want to maintain balance is that's going to have you be able to manage stress. So endurance sport in its nature is stressful, but it's a stress that we want. We're doing it for a purpose so we can adapt from it and get better at our craft. We also have, and our bodies are unable to determine if this stress is one that we want or if this is something that we don't want. It just knows that I'm under stress, and it could come from my job is really hard, my workout was challenging, or my blood sugar is imbalanced, or I just ate something that I don't respond well to. Your body doesn't know. It just knows that I'm stressed. In that response, your body's going to release cortisol. When you have volumes of cortisol being released, your body releases glucose and free fatty acids so that you have energy to run away from whatever stress it is that's giving you a hard time. But if you don't actually need to run away, those the blood sugar is raised from the glucose and you've got the free fatty acids. We don't want that just kind of roaming around in your body. It doesn't like it. Your body wants to reach homeostasis. So what happens, unfortunately, is the body packages that up generally into visceral fat deposition. So if you're under chronic stress, potentially, and it's often where you might see some endurance athletes who have, pretty lean and fit, and I do all this exercise, but it's still got a bit of a paunch. Or if you're going through perimenopause and menopause, hormone fluctuations, you also might start now to be developing a little bit of a belly that maybe you didn't have before. And that's often a pretty classic sign that there is a stress response and that it's heightened. And so you can take these adaptogens just to help sort of like calm that response so that you can sort of buffer the response you're doing or the stress response you're getting from your activity. So if you can lower your overall stress response, then you're not going to react so strongly from doing the activities that you want to do. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve here, is be able to play as hard and as often as we want to. So ashwagandha is actually acts a bit more as a relaxant. So this would be something that would be fine to take later in the day. You can take it in the morning, but you can take it later in the day. It can help with reducing anxiety and mood fluctuations. And it can do this by managing hormones and neurotransmitters and how quickly those fluctuate in the body. That would take a whole nother presentation to go through exactly how all of that happens. But because it has the ability to help your body regulate and not have such extreme variations, you have less chance or less potential for those mood swings or increased fatigue or impairment to your thyroid from stress, because your system's just running at a base level of sort of comfort. The nice thing with ashwagandha is that it's also anti-inflammatory, and it can help with delayed onset muscle soreness because it helps to moderate that inflammation response. So if you're struggling with chronic injury, this is where ashwagandha might help to support that. Rhodiola acts a little bit different, so it's a bit more energizing. So if I was going to take rhodiola, I would say take that first thing in the morning or earlier in the day to get the energizing effect from it. How ashwagandha works more on balancing hormones. Rhodiola actually works on delaying the degradation of your neurotransmitters. And so these are the little molecules that send signals from cell to cell or from neuron to neuron. And when you have a response, something that needs to be signaled down the line through in your body to respond to what you're doing, you don't want that response to happen and then drastically drop really quick. That's quite jarring on your body. So if you can have a nice steady response, then you're not going to have so many fluctuations, which you may experience if you're struggling with perimenopause, just because there is hormone fluctuation and neurotransmitter fluctuation, which can impact your mood and your cognitive function. And that also applies to anyone else who is dealing with high levels of stress, which we kind of all are. That also has a response or an effect on your neurotransmitters, on them being produced in large amounts and then very rapidly taken out of your system, which can be stressful. Rhodiola also helps to normalize the cortisol reaction, so it's not so extreme. Therefore, you're not going to have all the cortisol released, then all the blood sugar, all the free fatty acids, and then those go into that visceral fat deposition. And another nice bonus to rhodiola is that it helps your mitochondria to function a little bit more fluidly or a little bit better. And so you're actually going to get a faster production of ATP, and ATP is your energy. So if you can be producing energy faster, then you're going to run faster and bike faster and go for longer because you're going to have that energy available to do so. There's not a lot of sorry, that's very bad with this today. There's not a lot of direct replacement of, instead of taking ashwagandha, eat this food, or instead of taking rhodiola. But what you can do is incorporate into your diet foods that help support the stress response or reducing the stress response. And so the best way to do that is to look at eating whole foods that are supporting your body. And this is where there's going to be a lot of crossover of what we've already talked about. You want to eat foods that are going to reduce inflammation, because that inflammation can also trigger a cortisol response. And so anything that you can keep to lower that response is going to help your body. And so we're looking for foods that are high in vitamin B, particularly B12. And so that's like beef, chicken, eggs, your fortified cereals, nutritional yeast, or organ meats. This is where I'm going to add another supplement into a food portion. If you're primarily plant-based, you just might struggle. You might not. So this is where you're going to need to get your blood work checked. Before you're going to take supplements like B12, I would go to your doctor, see what your current B12 levels, because you may not need to take a supplement. So there's no reason to take it if you don't need it. But if you're low and you're not able to get it from, say, fortified cereals or nutritional yeast from being plant-based, then you may need to get a supplement of B12. So, but get your blood work tested first and talk to your doctor or to your nutritionist after, and see how the best way to go about doing that is. You also want to have foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, as Sarah's already mentioned. So that's going to be your fatty fish, your avocados, chia seeds, flax seeds. So if you're eating those for injury repair or prevention, you're also eating those to help with bringing your stress levels down. So it all kind of goes hand in hand quite nicely. And nice, good fatty fish has got good dose of protein, so it's helping with getting your protein content as well. Another nice thing is adding magnesium-rich foods. So magnesium is beneficial for reducing inflammation. It helps with metabolizing cortisol, so you can break the molecule and get it out of your system to stop the stress response. And it helps with relaxation. So this would be a nice thing that you could take with your tart cherry juice before bed and really help to promote having good sleep, which we know, if we circle back to the very top, is that not sleeping very well is stressful, but it also limits your ability to produce nitric oxide or to make those conversions. So all of these things kind of go hand in hand. Your magnesium-rich foods are going to be your avocados, bananas, broccoli, yes, dark chocolate, pumpkin seeds, and spinach. So again, getting a wide variety of foods supports so many systems within your body. And then also keeping stress levels down is if you keep your blood sugar balanced. So making sure that each meal has got that good protein dose, and you can do that with a lot of the foods that we've already mentioned. So making sure that your blood sugar is balanced. You want protein, carbs, and fats in your meals. Consistently eating throughout the day to keep your blood sugar balanced. There are other sort of diet protocols that you can utilize. They can be stressful. So it just depends on where you're at with your body of to what protocol would make sense for you. But if you're struggling a little bit with the stress response and things aren't functioning so great, maybe you want to look at keeping your blood sugar balanced throughout the day. And then finally, you can do all the right things and you can be eating all the right food, but you actually still need to support your digestive system so that you can absorb what you're taking. So you want to make sure that all of the food that you're eating is getting absorbed and is able to be distributed to your muscles or to wherever it needs to go. And so eating some gut healthy foods, so like your Greek yogurt or kefir, kimchi, kombucha, all of those things are going to give you your gut flora, the tasty treats that they need to be able to support your gut lining so that you can absorb the food that you need. So if you have, again, wide variety of foods, going to support all of those different processes and bring your stress down. Stress down enables you to make more adaptations from the hard work that you're doing for your training. And that's all I have for that. Is there any questions on adaptogens, on ashwagandha, rhodiola? All right. I'm so awesome, Sarah. We're doing so good today. We're just so clear and getting everything out there. I love it.
All right. Let's turn to the fourth item, which is metabolic efficiency. So I've got 2 supplements to talk to today to enhance your metabolic efficiency. And metabolic efficiency is really about helping our bodies to utilize fatty acids for fuel. And if we can really help our body to utilize fatty acids for fuel, we all have, no matter what our size, we all have a lot of fatty acids to be utilized on our bodies. And it is very advantageous for performance reasons, for health reasons, and also for weight optimization reasons to really support our bodies in finding metabolic efficiency. So the 2 supplements that I want to talk to today are green tea extract. So green tea extract, actually, there's this really fantastic 2013 study. It's a review actually in the Advances in Nutrition journal. And it basically says green tea extract helps to improve metabolic efficiency both at rest and during exercise. And it goes into a lot of detail on how it does that. But at the end of the day, within the green tea extract, there's 2 components that seem to be key players in helping push our body to utilize more fatty acids for fuel. And that is the EGCGs, the epigallocatechin galates, that are present only in matcha and green tea. Matcha is green tea. And then caffeine. However, whereas caffeine does seem to be beneficial in helping our body utilize more fatty acids in the short term, so we take it, we'll notice optimal benefit about 60 minutes after we take it. It'll last for maybe an hour or 2, slowly its half-life decreases over the next few hours, and then it's gone. Whereas the epigallocatechin galates, those catechins, they tend to, if we are utilizing green tea on a regular basis, they will help our bodies maintain a state of utilizing a greater amount of fatty acids for fuel. There's a 2011 analysis of 6 studies that actually showed green tea extract helped burn 16% more body fat in the individuals that were utilizing green tea extract versus the placebo group. So that is just one study that was looking very specifically at what can green tea extract do when it comes to weight loss. I have never utilized green tea extract as a supplement form, although there are many brands, supplements out there. I cannot find a good reason why not to simply just drink green tea or drink matcha green tea on a daily basis. And even for my clients who are like, nope, do not like the taste, I am not doing that, Sarah. I'm like, that's fine. Let's hide it somewhere. So we might hide a half teaspoon to a teaspoon every single day in their smoothie. And it literally, it's hidden. You will not notice it's in there. So either by drinking a matcha green tea or green tea works also. A cup of green tea or a cup of matcha contains about 100 to 300 milligrams of catechins. as well as 50 to, well, matcha green tea, anywhere from 35 to 90 grams of caffeine per serving. So the green tea, it's highly dependent on how long you steep your green tea. If you're one of those people who leave the green tea bag in the teacup or like to take it out right away, obviously there'd be less. Whereas with the matcha, you do have more control over how much you're adding. So half a teaspoon is 35 milligrams of caffeine, a little bit less catechins, 100, 150. Whereas if you utilize a teaspoon per day, you're obviously going to get a little bit more. So I recommend a half teaspoon to a teaspoon daily. And getting into this daily habit is going to put you in that place, like the study says, that will improve your metabolic efficiency both at rest and during exercise. And so it's during the exercise that's going to help to improve performance. And really, like Tanya was saying, these are all connected. All four of these categories we spoke to are connected. We really can take any of the supplements or the foods we've been talking about, and they're going to benefit us in all four of these categories at the end of the day. The second supplement that I want to touch on when it comes to improving metabolic efficiency is MCT oil. So MCT oil is something that I've both utilized in the past, experimented with a number of different brands, as well as there's powdered MCT oil also, which can be an easier to travel with. MCT oil can be quite messy to travel with. It can be directly converted into ketones for energy. And so there actually is studies that show taking MCT oil before exercise increases your fat burning. So it increases the utilization of fatty acids for fuel. That said, you really want to experiment with this. Some runners can say, put some MCT oil in their coffee, drink it up, and then go for a workout, no problem whatsoever. Others will notice digestive distress that is not conducive to performance whatsoever. So it can be helpful, it might not be helpful. You definitely want to experiment with that. And obviously, if you can't take it just before exercise, then no problem at all. Slide it into any other part of the day. After exercise, put it in your coffee after exercise or your matcha after exercise. You may have heard of Bulletproof coffee, trademarked by Bulletproof, of course. Bulletproof coffee is coffee that has a very specific type of coffee, mold-free coffee, that has MCT oil in it, as well as grass-fed butter. And very specific reasons for the butter I won't get into. Those are short-chain fatty acids. The MCT oil, medium-chain triglycerides, so medium-chain fatty acids. These are what can be directly converted into ketones, primarily C8 and C10. So you've got all these different lengths of fatty acids, and C8 and C10 are the primary ones that are converted into energy. If we take in these oils, either through MCT oil, which is C8, C10, or through coconut oil. So coconut oil is what I've reverted to after using MCT oil for a year or two. I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go back to coconut oil and see if that does the same thing for me. For me, I feel that it did. I have clients who feel that MCT oil is worth it, and that's totally valid. So whatever you feel works best for you, I would say experiment with both. For me, I just love using all the coconut oil and everything all the time. So putting either MCT oil and coconut oil and grass-fed butter, which can be eliminated for vegans, into, say, coffee or matcha first thing in the morning. No carbohydrates of any sort. And this is obviously only if you haven't exercised hard that morning. You will notice that you get this very clear-headed energy boost. So the ketones can fuel the brain. Whereas when I was taking my sports nutrition course, I was taught the only fuel that the brain can use is glucose, and that's not true. Glucose is carbohydrates, which is a fuel that causes some inflammation when it's burned, whereas ketones are said to be a very clean burning fuel, so no inflammation produced. And it just gives you very clear-headed energy, a lot of focus and concentration first thing in the morning. So something to possibly experiment with. And I do want to give cursory mention to protein. So Tanya already spoke to protein. I do want to say that oftentimes those who are on any sort of a diet that is headed towards metabolic efficiency often looks somewhat ketogenic or low carb, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, but often it does, and includes some sort of collagen. So really at the end of the day, where we get our protein from is very personal. For me right now, I'm utilizing collagen every single day. I used to utilize whey protein every single day. Many, many years ago, I used to utilize a vegan protein. I've just, cycle through whatever feels best for my body in the phase that I'm currently in. And so what makes best sense for you, like Tanya kind of already spoke to, it really depends on what your goals are, where you are in life, what kind of diet you're trying to adhere to. I love collagen for the fact that it really is supportive of tendons, ligaments, joints, skin and hair too, which is great. I mean, I'm all for having skin and hair that looks as good as possible. But especially since busting my ACL and a couple of years ago when I broke my foot is when it actually got started me on collagen. Really helpful to building bones, building tendons and ligaments. So as athletes, it can be very advantageous. I often, for most of my clients, will recommend a scoop or two of collagen, as well as half a scoop of some sort of protein powder. Half a scoop of whey protein. Whey proteins often have 25 to 30 grams of protein. Or it could be almost a full scoop of vegan protein, which often has less protein per serving. So including some sort of protein helps, and Tanya already mentioned this again, helps with satiation, helps to curb appetite, and helps to build muscle. These are all very, very important things that will help us to achieve metabolic efficiency at the end of the day. So I will leave that there. I'm going to give a cursory mention to any kind of greens powders. Greens powders are going to be beneficial to us on all four of the categories, really equally so. I think Tanya would agree with me in anything for sports performance, for injury recovery, for hormonal health, stress management, metabolic efficiency. There are pathways where getting more greens, whether through real leafy greens or through greens powder, is going to be advantageous to us. So I will leave it there and open up the floor. Does anyone have any questions?
There is one in the chat function about caffeine that maybe you might want to look at. So if I am someone that does not drink caffeine and haven't for more than 15 plus years, would this still be something I can consume without an issue? I stopped drinking caffeine because I used to only drink soda and decided to stop.
Okay, great question. Great question. And just recognizing it is top of the hour. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. If you have to go, no worries at all. I will be sending out the recording, like I mentioned.
Thanks for coming.
And so, yes, if you're someone who does not drink caffeine, caffeine is not something I would recommend you get started on. So there are some great decaffeinated green teas out there, and there's even some decaffeinated matcha green teas out there. I would look for a decaffeinated matcha or a decaffeinated green tea so that you can utilize the benefits of the catechins without getting onto the caffeine, because caffeine has some positives, yes. It also has a ton of possible negatives that we may want to avoid. So it's not something I would ever recommend somebody introduce, especially after having gotten rid of it for 15 years. Great question.
I agree. Are there any other questions?
All right.
Amazing. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us for this presentation. We have a couple different ways that you can reach out to us. You can find us on the socials of Eat to Run. We also got Tanya or Sarah at Eat to Run for emails. And would love to hear from you on the socials if you have any other topics that you might like us to cover in the future. Or maybe if you would prefer us to open it back up to having a straight up question and answer evening, So if you have some input on that, it'd be really great. So we kind of know how you would like us to go forward and where you think you might get the most benefit from what we have to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We would love to hear from you. I will be sending out the recording via email. So if you want to respond that way, that works as well, or see you on the socials. And just thank you so much for taking the time to join Tanya and I tonight. It's been great. And we look forward to next time. Although I will say that I'm not sure when next time will be. I'm currently 35 weeks pregnant and baby will be coming along soon. So we will send out a notice in the newsletter when the next one will be. Just
Yes.
it might be a couple months.
Understandable. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you at our next opportunity.
Good night, everyone.